Hi, everybody. I know everybody was talking, but there was a song playing in advance of me stepping up here. I don't know if any of you recognize that song, but it's called Not Easy, and it's by a guy named Alex da Kid. And that song it reached number 6 on the Billboard Top 10 2 years ago, I believe. And that song was written in collaboration between Alex da Kid and Watson, a cognitive AI system. And he was very intentional about that. Now, I'm going to talk about Alex da Kid a little bit more here in just a little bit, but before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the AI gap and what I mean by that. So there was a study of CMOs that came out last year that asked these CMOs, what do you think about AI? Where do you think it's going? How is it involved in your strategy around marketing and connecting with your customers? And there was 3 things that came out of that I thought were pretty important. So first off, almost universally, the CMOs agreed that AI is absolutely coming. It's absolutely going to change the way we need to interact with our with our customers, and it's going to change their expectations of the brands that they do business with. The second thing was that in that same 36-month period that they see this big change coming, not a part of their strategy at all. So there's a little disconnect there. And the third and probably most damning thing was that it wasn't a part of their strategy, and they really have no idea what to do with AI. They don't understand how to apply it to their business, how to use it to interact with their customers, or anything like that. So as I start to sort of unpack those 3 points, it's a little bit weird because they all know that it's coming and that consumers are going to expect it from them, but it's not a part of their strategy, and it's really only not a part of their strategy because they have no idea what to do with it. So I spent the last year meeting with a lot of clients to try and understand more about why there's this disparity. That's the AI gap. That's what I'm going to talk to you about today. And frankly, it's why I'm at IBM. It's why I'm here talking to you today, and it's why I spent the last year spending all this time with these customers. So this is this AI gap that we have to overcome, and it's time to do that. So I spent the last year, as I said, meeting with a lot of different customers, and during that time, I really uncovered 4 sort of common misconceptions that people have about AI, how to apply it in their business, and sort of what it is in general. So I'm going to talk to you about those 4 things today. So the first of those is that AI, while interesting, is really just not for me. It's not for my business. I've seen all the ads on TV. They're at the Masters. They do stuff to save white rhinos or whatever, but it really doesn't have any practical application to my business. It's just not there for me. So I'm going to play a quick little video here that I think sort of illustrates at a high level why AI is actually for all of us as marketers in this room, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about that.
Customer data, you got it, tons of it, and you know your customer. Take Jack, for example. Jack loves waffles. How do you know? Because Sunday Jack said so on social. And last Friday, he'd been searching for a waffle maker in your online store. Boom! Now you're ready to talk to him. Because you know Jack. Except Jack was actually just carving up for a 5K at the end of the week. He's not so much a waffle freak as a fitness freak. But you already assigned him to a target audience, so you're still talking to him about all things waffle. Jack deletes the email without opening it. And then he ignores your SMS. And closes your ad. So you don't know Jack. And to give Jack an experience that would have actually been right for him, you should have had a platform that let your data show that he's not obsessed with brunch, he's obsessed with running. And you also would have known that Jack is actually Jacqueline. If your marketing can't make sense of your data, you don't know Jack.
So I'm taking the chuckles in the room that you guys can relate to this a little bit, right? This is the problem that we're all facing today. So if I had sat down with many marketers 5, 10 years ago and we had a conversation about their customers. Some of the big things people would have been talking about is, with the data that I have available to me today, I have a pretty good understanding of my customer. I still have to take a bit of a spray and pray approach to how I reach them, but with the data, I have a good handle on the data. And then people started to talk more about, how do we aggregate all of this data? Here's the problem. In the last 24 months, 90% of the data that we have available to us to figure out how we should connect with our customers was created. 90% of the data that is available to us was created in the last 24 months. That is an astounding statistic. And I didn't just come up with it. I know it sounds like I might have just made it up, but I didn't. So what has changed over the last several years is that we have a whole lot more data, which sounds like a good thing, but it creates a ton of noise. It makes it really, really hard to get to not just answers, but to get to the right questions that we need to ask ourselves. So as we think about Jack versus Jacqueline and running versus and carving up for a race versus just loving waffles, this is a problem that if you're trying to weed through all of this data, you're going to naturally run up against. So I'll give you another little story here. Anybody know this guy? If you do, shout it out. Nope. Nate Silver? Yep, that's exactly right. So Nate Silver is one of my favorite people. I don't know him personally, but I like to hang out with him. If you see this, Nate, call me. So Nate is a statistician, and he, going back to about 2007, he worked primarily in the sports industry. And he did Billy Bean level analysis, only like on steroids. So anybody that's familiar with Moneyball knows the story of Billy Bean. This guy made Billy Bean look like a piker. And he was pretty brilliant at what he did, but around 2007, 2008, there was something else going on in the United States. That is, there was a presidential election. And so Nate Silver, pretty inquisitive guy, looked at what was going on with the election, and he felt like none of the pollsters had any clue what was actually going to happen, although they reported all the time on who was going to win by precinct, by state, whatever. And so he's not only inquisitive and really, really bright, he's also not that humble. And so what Nate did next was he decided, you know what, I'm going to get out of this whole sports thing and I'm going to go into politics, and I am going to build models that fix what all these other pollsters have gotten wrong. And I'm going to try to predict the outcome of elections. So 2008 primaries, Barack Obama is running against Hillary Clinton. Nobody early on thought that Barack Obama, except maybe Barack himself, thought that he really had a good shot against Hillary Clinton. Nate Silver predicted, before anybody really considered Barack Obama to be a contender, he predicted that he was going to beat Hillary in the primary. He then went on to predict that accurately that he was going to win the general election 49 out of 50 states. This was an astounding accomplishment, especially for somebody that had never done it before in the political arena. And the way he did it was he didn't do what everybody else had always said, this is how you predict the outcomes of elections. He looked at polls, absolutely, it's the bulk of his data set. But he started to look at massive amounts of other pieces of data that helped him better understand the demographics of the people that were participating in these polls, their propensity to vote one way or the other, their education level, and on and on and on. And that, he built these models that allowed him to consume this massive amount of data and then predict a different outcome that oftentimes fought against conventional wisdom. And it turns out he was right way more often than he was wrong, and he was right way more often than pretty much anybody else. Fast forward to 2012, he does it again. Barack Obama is running against John Kerry to protect his seat. He gets 50 out of 50 states accurate. The guy is a machine. I really like him. So he's very smart. He built a really cool set of models. They analyze way more data than people are used to seeing. And then he screwed up. So 2016. I know. I read the articles. Exactly. But his probabilities, because of his models, were inaccurate, right? So his probability said up until election night, and I remember this very clearly because I was pinging his site, said that Hillary Clinton had a 72% chance of winning. Most of the pollsters said she had a 90% or better chance of winning. So they were all basically wrong, and you're right. He, to this day, maintains that he wasn't wrong. But the thing is that people were relying on his model to determine what they thought the outcome of the election was going to be. And pretty much universally, people got it wrong. So he didn't get it as wrong as others, but he kind of got it wrong. And so if you go back and you read his retrospective on it, it comes down to a few things that were sort of missing from his model. Number one, there was the impact of the voters that were voting for Hillary Clinton in the states that she was making an impact really did not get her any more electoral college votes. Number two, the white undereducated voters that made the biggest difference for Donald Trump happened to be in big swing states. And his model didn't find those people. And so what happened, and this is just a representation of how a lot changed in a 4-year period. So how could he get 50 out of 50 states right in 2012 and then predict that Hillary Clinton was going to win with a 72% probability of that? A lot about people changed. Consumer behavior changed. The way they interact on social media changed. And yes, there was a lot going on behind the scenes around what people were feeling in this country and a level of disenfranchisement. But generally speaking, that information historically, what was going on in the world, was available, and he was able to analyze it. So as we think about whether or not AI is for us, we have to think about not so much Donald Trump, but we have to think about, are we prepared as marketers to consume this massive amount of data and the change that's taking place in the way people interact with public information? So fake news, fake clicks, all of this stuff is sort of impacting how consumers share information, how they consume information, and what they're going to do. It doesn't just affect the outcome of elections, it absolutely impacts the way we have to connect with those customers and how we can understand who our buyers are. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I've heard many, many times is that AI is really sort of hard to understand. And I think this is sort of the crux of that CMO study, right? Everybody knows it's coming, but it's not a part of their strategy because they have no idea what to do with it. So I'm going to do a little exercise with the audience, and I think there might be a couple people in here that have seen this exercise before. If so, please don't shout out the answer. So I'm going to play you a couple of audio clips, and I think that I can train your brain similar to the way we think about training AI. So I'm going to play you this first clip. There's a lot of noise. Think about, as I'm talking about massive amounts of data, growth of data, difficulty of sort of weeding through that. Try to hear what they're saying here, and then I'm going to ask you for your response.
She writes to her brother every day.
Okay. Hear any words in there? Every day. Okay. Any other words? Her brother. Okay. Okay, exactly. So you got there.
She writes to her brother every day.
So that's exactly right. Now, I'm going to play that clip again, the first clip, and I want to see if you hear it differently, if it's easier to uncover that phrase.
She writes to her brother every day.
Right? It's a whole lot easier. It's a simple trigger in your brain, and you sort of teach yourself when you hear the right answer clearly to filter out all that noise. And AI, in terms of training, is sort of similar. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can train AI, and that's a rudimentary example. But it's not, it feels so complicated. So I'll give you some more concrete examples. So remember at the beginning, I talked about Alex da Kid. So Alex da Kid not only created that song that went to in the top 10 of the Billboard, but he's using Watson to do some other really interesting things. So he is a music producer that has produced some incredible, like multi-platinum, he's a big deal, hits. And what he's constantly looking for is new artists to work with that he thinks, I've got a song I can connect this artist with, it's the right style, they understand what I'm trying to accomplish, and they can help me deliver my message. And so the problem is that if you go out to Spotify, which is where he spends a lot of his time searching for artists, there's over 2 million artists out there. And it's growing exponentially every single day. It's incredible. So how do you weed through all of that data and uncover an artist that has the style you want, has the tone that you're looking for, does songs with a sentiment that's similar to what you're trying to deliver, whatever your criteria are, and they are complicated. And this is unstructured data because it's music. So he's using Watson to basically plug in information, and Spotify tracks something like 16,000 or some crazy amount of subgenres and then all this data points. So he's using AI to sort of sort through all of this unstructured data and surface artists that then he can apply to his next song. So that's one example of how AI works. Again, sort of the same story, right? We're filtering out all the noise to surface what it is we really want to get to. So we're also doing some work with H&R Block. Now, H&R Block has a very different problem. So anybody here read the US tax code? Why not? I mean, it's only 74,000 pages long. Thousands of pages change every single year. So if you're a tax professional, think about the implications of that. Let's watch a quick video.
Say hello to the partnership between H&R Block and IBM Watson.
Hello, my name is Watson.
Imagine being able to understand all 74,000 pages of the U.S. tax code, along with thousands of yearly tax law changes and other information. Plus, Block's deep insights built from over 600 million data points. Yes, 600 million. Imagine being able to understand all that information. Watson will learn from it and help your tax pro find every credit and deduction available to you.
All right, so think about the implication of that for a second. If you're a tax professional, if you're a tax professional and you've gone through H&R Block, anybody used H&R Block here to do their taxes? Yeah, a few people. So their tax professionals go through a pretty significant training, and they're trained every single year. But here's the problem. No matter how good you are, no matter how many tax returns you've filed, and I saw some ad the other day from H&R Block, they were referencing one woman that had done something like 21,000 tax returns. She's probably pretty good at it, right? But can she consume, understand, instantly recall, and leverage 74,000 pages of the US tax code? I would argue that's impossible. So if you want to help somebody find every single deduction, AI is really the only way to do it, to be able to consume and manage all that data. But now think about, how does a computer system consume 74,000 pages of free text? Because it's not, again, it's all unorganized, unstructured data in this crazy complicated US legalese. So Watson can do that, and Watson acts as an assistant to a tax professional, does not replace a tax professional. So again, sort of surfacing or sorting through all of this data to try and uncover it. AI is really not that hard to understand. It can be used to do a lot of things, but a lot of the best use cases are around managing all of this data. All right, so one other story before I go on to this. So one third and sort of final use case. And I think this one's pretty interesting. I was talking to somebody about it the other day. So in the healthcare field, and I think people have seen ads where we're doing stuff in healthcare, we went out and we proposed to a team of oncologists that meet every week to deal with some of the most complicated cases and try to come up with not just a diagnosis, typically they have a diagnosis, but they try to come up with a treatment plan. Now the problem that these people face is that there are roughly 8,000 new medical journal papers written and published every week. There are new trials going on every single week. And this is a team of people, they're very, very smart, but how can they consume all of that? So what they're doing is they're using Watson to go out and in real time, every single day, consume every new article written, consume information about the results of every trial. And what they found is that historically, they might not get to information about a trial for a year after it had been out there. So it didn't matter how good of a doctor they were, they didn't have that information available to them. And so the guy that is sort of the head of this team, his name I think is Dr. Sharpless, and he was very, very skeptical of Watson to begin with, so he ran it through some trials, and he found that Watson not only correctly diagnosed, but then provided the exact same treatment plan in 99% of the times that his doctors had done. And when he was on 60 Minutes and when they asked him if that gave him more confidence in Watson, he said, actually, it gives me a lot more confidence in my doctors. And so the interesting piece on top of that, he followed up that statement by saying, and the reason that is because Watson, in about 35% of those cases, came back and gave alternative treatment plans based on other pieces of information that we had missed or didn't have enough data to support. And so it was a pretty powerful thing, and it's absolutely improving people's lives. So that said, that's, again, healthcare. I mean, there's people in the healthcare field here, but we're not really doctors out treating people a lot of the time, right? So the question is, as marketers, is this really business ready for us? And more often than not, when I go out and talk to clients, they don't see it. They're not seeing it yet. So I have another video I'm going to play you guys here that I get pretty excited about. It's a little bit dull because it's geeky guys like me standing in a room talking to Watson. It's not exciting like the Jack and Jacqueline one, but I think it makes the point about how AI can be used in a real-world business environment. Now, this was filmed in one of our labs in upstate New York. It was not pre-scripted. Watson was not fed any of the answers or anything like this. Absolutely real. Anybody here ever been through mergers and acquisitions? Anybody done M&A work? All right, so you will know, those of you raising your hands, you will know how impressive this is when you see this.
Watson, I need help with acquisitions.
Hello. How can I help you with mergers and acquisitions?
Watson, show me companies with revenue between $25 million and $60 million pertaining to analytics.
Let's see what I can find. I found 87 companies.
Nice.
Okay, so that's a good start. What do you think, Brian?
But I was doing some homework, actually. I think we should pull in that Watson Strategy Group document. There's a lot of key concepts in there. Let's feed it to Watson.
All right. Watson, please regard this as cognitive strategy.
Watson, show me companies with revenue between $15 million and $60 million pertaining to cognitive strategy.
Let's see what I can find.
Yeah, this is nice.
I found 112 companies.
Now we're getting a lot in here. And we can see we're getting some connections too, I think.
Watson, show me companies that are about analytics and cognitive strategy that are most similar to the companies named Wolfram Alpha and Kawasaki Robotics.
I found 3 companies similar to the ones you specified.
Beautiful.
Well, let's see what we think of these.
Dive a little deeper. Let's compare these things.
Sure. Watson, show me a decision table.
Here is a decision table that will enable you to compare companies side by side.
Watson, place the companies named Wolfram Alpha and Kawasaki Robotics and Cognalytics and Raytheon BBN Technologies and Decisive Analytics in the decision table.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay, but I think we need a little more than that. We need some other attributes. Watson, place the attributes named revenue and employees and corporate structure in the decision table.
Okay.
All right, so now we've got this side-by-side comparison. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Watson, give me a suggestion.
I have a suggestion.
So we're not going to look at the suggestion, but that said, if you've been through an M&A activity or exercise before, what took them a matter of minutes to get to can be a weeks-long exercise. It is an unbelievable amount of work just to surface some of the answers that they were able to come up with. So let's highlight a few key things that I think are really important about that. So number one, They were interacting with Watson using natural language. They were talking to the system, and it was understanding them, and it was responding in real time. Number two, they were able to feed information into it that was free text. And in real time, it not only consumed that information, but then it was able to use it as a part of surfacing the answers to the questions they were asking. And then third and finally, and I think this is sort of critical to understanding why AI is not going to turn into Skynet, is that it was serving less as artificial intelligence and more as augmented intelligence. And what I mean by that is that those two guys were totally directing the conversation, and Watson was a part of their team, but purely as an assistant. Watson was there to help go through this massive amount of data and surface answers to questions and actually help them come up with some questions they should need to ask too. That's where AI gets really valuable, and that's how IBM sees the value of AI. Watson's not meant to be an employee. It's a tool to empower employees. It's augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. That's where we think it's going. That's where we believe the value is. And that's the principles under which we develop these solutions. So this is interesting, but now how do we start to think about applying this in our business, right? So again, not marketing, M&A. So there are a ton of ways. So when we talk about is it business ready, what the limitation to how you can leverage AI to better surface insights about your customers, ask better questions of that data, and come up with ways that you should be connecting with them is limited primarily by your imagination. So AI can be used to analyze images. It can recognize the content of photos. It can recognize colors. It can analyze voice. It can analyze free text. It can do taxonomy. It can do sentiment and tone and all sorts of other things. Again, the limit is really our creativity on how to use it. I want to show you one example of a way it's being used. If Wi-Fi will work here. Let's see. Anybody, show of hands, anybody a Twitter user in this room? All right. Keep your hand raised if your profile is public and you post on a semi-regular basis. Anybody? All right. Of the people with your hands up, you willing to give me your handle? I will not hack your account. I don't need your anything like that. You want to give me your handle? Sure. All right. H-A. All right. Search. See if this works. Oops. All right. Is that you? I believe it is. All right. So this is a tool called Personality Insights. And so what it has just done is gone and scraped Heather's Twitter profile for everything that she's posted, retweeted, liked, and on and on and on. Now we're going to do a quick analysis of this, and Watson is going to do this analysis and then provide us some insights. So let me see if I can increase the size of this. According to this, you are energetic, you like fast-paced, your busy schedule, and you have many activities. You're trusting, you believe in the best of others. For some reason, you're relatively unconcerned with taking pleasure in life. I guess it's all about the work for you. So any of this start to resonate true? Now let's scroll down here and let's look at another view of it. So, according to this, you're artistic somewhat, you're adventurous, you're assertive, you have a very high, one of the highest activity levels I've seen, 100% is rare. You're gregarious, you're altruistic. So as you can see, it starts to pull out some things. Now, a couple things I want to point out about this, because I've gotten into some debates with people about the value of this data. Because this is what Heather chooses to post online. So when you think about consumer insights, the question is, does this help me market to Heather? The fact is, Heather posts online, and I'm sure it's all true, but Heather posts online what she wants the world to perceive about her. The private stuff is kept to private messaging. That's the way the world has changed. And so when we think about how we want to connect with Heather, oftentimes from a brand decision-making perspective, Heather's choosing based not just on what she wants, but also what she wants the world to believe about her. So this data absolutely is valuable. Now imagine, we just did this for Heather. Imagine if you could do this at scale for all of your customers and then turn around and market to them based on the insights that you could gather from this. It would be way too much data for us to analyze beyond just one person at a time, but AI can not only do this analysis, it can surface the insights as a result of that. Let's go back over the slides here real quick. All right. So, anybody know of a guy named Keith Weed? So Keith is the CMO at Unilever, very, very big CPG organization, and he's been in the media quite a bit over the last 12 months. They have a pretty substantial marketing budget and media budget, as you would imagine. And he has been in the media because he's been calling out social media organizations, basically saying, if you're not good for the world, we're not spending our very significant budget with you. So we did a personality insights on this, and not shockingly, it talks about the fact that he is very assertive, he's aggressive, he will call you out, all this stuff. So not that you would necessarily be interested in marketing to Keith, but the output of the personality insights aligns very well to what we know about him publicly. Here's the thing. We also know that Keith has a lot of heart. And so one of the brands within the Unilever portfolio is called Knorr, or if you're European, Knorr. And Knorr did an experiment that turned into a wildly successful marketing campaign leveraging Watson. And it's called Love at First Taste.
Hello, I am Watson. As a supercomputer, I am not programmed to love. But when Knorr asked me to see if flavor was the missing ingredient in human connections, my circuits were all aflutter. Using brain-melting cognitive technology that cross-referenced volumes of recipes with sophisticated personality analysis, I created a flavor personality profile system and then put it to the test on humans searching for love.
Hi.
How long have you been single for?
6 months now.
3 years now.
For all my life, so 21 years.
What are your favorite flavors?
I like hearty stuff.
I love spicy food. I have really high tolerance to spicy food.
You have to feed each other.
Eh?
So I'm not allowed to put food in my own mouth.
No, you're not. Interactions between subjects was far beyond projected levels as they found their common bond was in flavor. Overall human response exceeded my calculations.
So let me talk about Knorr. In the first 24 hours, 5 million people saw the film. And over the time of the campaign, got 2 billion impressions, and 3/4 of those impressions were earned.
And that's not all.
According to new global research by Knorr, they found that 78% of people claim to be more attracted to people who enjoy the same food flavors as them.
The whole planet noticed the campaign. Millions of humans discovered their own flavor profile. And Knorr connected with a whole new generation. Based on this evidence, my conclusion is that love can happen. At first taste.
So that's a pretty cool video, right? But what's super cool is not only is it adorable, but 2.2 billion impressions. 3/4 of them earned, 15% increase in intent to purchase. That is insane by anybody's standards, right? So but if I'm you and I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, well, we still don't all have the budget that Keith Weed has and that Unilever has. We can't all afford to go out and do a science project, some discrete application like H&R Block has done, like Knorr has done, like in healthcare applications. I need a way to apply this in my business today. And that seems really expensive. And you're not wrong. It's expensive. So that sort of brings me to the last of the 4 points or misconceptions. I should wait and see what happens. So if we think about technology, AI is a little bit different from the way we've made technology investments in the past. So first thing you've got to understand about AI is that it is a learning-based system. It doesn't come out of the box ready to roll, right? You have to teach it all of these things that it does. So Knorr had to educate Watson on flavor profiles, and then it had to consume all of this data, right? So if you think about the way that people traditionally think about technology decisions, you get your innovators, you get your early adopters. Everybody's seen this, right? And then you eventually reach this tipping point, and then you have your laggards on the back end. That works fine if you're a late majority or a laggard, because in your mind, in a typical technology purchasing decision, you're saying, all these guys up front here, they're essentially funding bringing down the cost of the investment that I need to make. They're doing all of that upfront investment and work, and these innovators, they spend a lot of money to do that. The problem with a learning-based system is it really doesn't work that way. Because when you take it out of the box, it doesn't matter what other people have done when we're talking about a business application of it. You still have to teach it. It's born like a baby, and it has to be taught to crawl and walk and run, and then you have to spend a lot of money to send it through grad school. And eventually what you get is an assistant for your team that can help you uncover some incredible insights. So now I'm going to make the one little shameless plug for specifically why I'm here. And so this all sounds like a pretty dark message, right? It's hard to do. We don't really understand it. Because it's not a technology-based investment, we have to train it. It's going to be really expensive, and we can't really rely on other people's investment to get us there. So yes and no. If you want to do something like Knorr, or you want to do something like H&R Block, and you have an idea on how to create a discrete application, and you have to start from scratch, yes, that can be pretty expensive. But what we've done, and sort of what I'm here to talk to you guys about today, and how I think we can bring value to you, is a little bit different. So I'm within a brand within IBM called Watson Customer Engagement. And what we have is a full marketing stack. We have a full commerce stack, and we have a full supply chain stack. And what we're doing, and we've been doing it for years now, is taking Watson as a technology, and we're embedding it into these applications. So if you're a marketer and you use campaign automation software, or you use customer analytics software, or you have an e-commerce site, or a digital experience, or whatever, what we're doing is we're embedding Watson into this type of tech that you're already using every single day. And the beauty of us starting years ago is that we've done a lot of that training. You don't have to teach it to crawl, walk, and run. We've already put it through college. And it's, I'd say, at an intern level right now. So what you need to do is tailor it for you. So this story about you've got to train it and you've got to start from scratch, it's true. You're losing time if you don't get over this gap that we're facing and start to adopt this tech, whether it's from us or somebody else. But there is answers out there that mean you don't have to start from zero. So one last slide on us. So IDC did a study of AI being embedded in enterprise software, and there's two things I want you to take away from this. Obviously, we're in the leader spot, so that's pretty cool. But maybe more importantly than that is there's really only 4 vendors on this thing. How crazy is that, considering all of the software that's out there and all the talk that people do about AI? How is it that there's only 4 vendors in enterprise marketing that are leveraging AI? So it's because it's really hard. We're investing a ton of money, and deep learning is not something that's easy to figure out. Thankfully, we started doing it back in 2004 as a science experiment to compete against Ken Jennings on Jeopardy. So that's the way IBM works, is we're a science company first, then we figure out how to monetize stuff that makes sense on the back end. And so that's why we are where we are. All right, so I'm going to wrap on this. I'm standing between you and lunch, so we're not going to do a Q&A. That said, there are 5 people, myself here included, from IBM Watson Customer Engagement. We would love to chat with you. We will be at lunch. we will be at the reception, and we have some times we can set aside meetings and even do double booking. So I'll leave you with this. AI is absolutely for you. It's for everybody right now. It's really not as hard to understand as we all thought it was. It's ready, it's relevant, and you need to start today. Thank you.